Hi, I'm Mike Zupan, President of Zupan's Markets. I'm also a board member of the Emmanuel Medical Center Foundation. We want to thank everyone for being here tonight and for your tremendous support and generosity in helping support the trauma services to our region. First became involved with Emmanuel Hospital about 5 years ago when my father was involved in a tragic motorcycle accident. And at that point in time, we saw the great care that was done in the trauma services at Emmanuel Hospital.
In the Portland metropolitan area, there are 2 trauma centers, OHSU and Emmanuel Hospital. So you can expect to get a rapid response, and you have EMTs in this area who have a lot of experience with all kinds of trauma because of the sheer volume of trauma patients that are injured in a highly metropolitan area. In the rural areas, you don't have that. So if you enjoy riding down to the coast and playing golf, down there in Glen Eden, some of the other places, and you get in a bad accident, you want to know that things are going to be more in your favor if all the people there feel comfortable in what they're doing and we can move quickly and work together as a team. That's what we're trying to raise money for, because the rural hospitals have to budget for the surgeon to leave as well as the nurse to leave to spend all day in Portland to get this kind of training. For tonight's meeting, we're presenting 2 cases that we think reflect extraordinary care provided by the rural community to save a person's life as well as to reduce permanent disability.
On behalf of our family and the John J. Zupan Foundation, we would like to thank all the first responders, the physicians, the nurses, the staff members for your tremendous dedication and hard work in helping save lives throughout our community and helping miracles happen every day. Thank you.
It was a beautiful day. I don't think there was even a cloud in the sky. It was 65 degrees, the water was clear, the surf was phenomenal. I actually had one of the best surfing days I've had on the Oregon coast ever. I went past the break and just was kind of resting on my board, vertical, just resting my arms on the board, and I was maybe there for 5-10 minutes before the shark bit down on my leg. I thought it was a boat that hit me, just because you get that jarring feeling, kind of like someone gets rear-ended, you kind of don't know what happens. And I saw gills in front of me. They were, a foot away from my face. And then, reality set in. It's a shark. This is how people die. I figured that there's gills in front of me. That's how they breathe. They're probably pretty fragile. They're full of blood. And so I just decided to start hitting him, and I don't know how many times I hit him, but it was very quick from the thought I had of hitting them to when he actually released me. Looking behind me, my board was soaked in blood. There was a trail of blood behind me, and Hollywood has built this idea that sharks smell blood, they're gonna come attack. So I was really worried about it coming back, and that was probably the scariest part of the entire experience, was just waiting for it to come back. I just cruised all the way till my fins dug in the sand and my board stopped. Everyone came from all directions. There was, probably 30 people on the beach. In a sense, it was really lucky that it was me, because I had, the training to understand the severity of it. And I just asked people what they saw, tell me if you see any arterial bleeding, any gushing blood. Do you see a lot of blood? I was like, well, let's tie a tourniquet just in case. And somebody, immediately ripped off their shirt, tied it around my leg. It wasn't tied enough, and so I told them to use my leash on my board. Taught them to tie a square knot so it wouldn't come loose. And police officers showed up and they tied a proper tourniquet on my leg.
I had 2 tours through operations while I was in the Marine Corps. I was with the 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. And during that time I was a combat lifesaver and received medical training. I put my tourniquet on above it, made sure it was properly placed on there, and then I got QuikClot and packed his wounds. His leg was pretty torn up on both the top and bottom of the thigh, so I had 2 QuikClot gauze pads and packed both areas to help with controlling the area.
And then the ambulance showed up.
Considering where the shark bite was, there's a lot of vessels there, arterial vessels that are pretty big, and you can bleed out very quickly from a bite that size, and not knowing what to do, placing the tourniquet in the right spot, you can potentially bleed out in a matter of minutes and probably not even make it to the ambulance.
I remember waking up or coming to in the trauma bay. I had a manual in the ED, and I was holding my coworker Michelle's hand in my left hand and my coworker Jamie's hand in my right hand, and I remember just having that sense of relief again, just being like, I'm home, I'm safe, there's no sharks here.
One of the first responders was a recent war veteran who'd been trained in the appropriate use of tourniquets, which the use of a tourniquet is actually quite sophisticated in that it needs to control bleeding but not actually cut off the blood supply to the limb. It really speaks to the importance of adequate training for first responders in the use of basic things like tourniquet application, splinting for fractures, monitoring for compartment syndrome, that really make the difference between long-term disability, even occasionally amputation, and essentially a normal functional outcome. I always joke with Joseph that now all he has to do is go to any bar in a tropical area and wear shorts, and you know, he has plenty of stories to tell. Can get free drinks all around.
I have a reaffirmed appreciation for having more fun in my life. The biggest thing is the relationships that I have with the people in my life. Your house can burn down tomorrow, and you feel like nothing's left, but really it's all the people in your life are left. I'm grateful that I was so lucky. I'm grateful that I had so many people help me on the beach, in the parking lot, in the hospital, and I'm grateful that I just got the most unconditional support from everyone, from strangers, from friends, from family, from coworkers, and I'm so grateful to be alive.
I live a very violent life. I've been in and out of prison several times, jails. And that day on the side of the road when I think I got a heart transplant from my God let me stay for a reason. I don't know why. I don't care why. I just know that I am not the same guy I was March 31st before my accident. It was a beautiful day, and my machine was just starting to breathe real good, and so I was, heck yeah, I got this thing, it's living and breathing, and it sounds pretty doggone good. And so I saw the 35-mile-an-hour marker, so I took my hand, put my foot down on the controls, both hands up here, clutch, shift, and then I put my hand back up and started looking back and forth, and then impact. And that's the last thing I remember up until I woke up out of a coma in Emmanuel Legacy Hospital in Portland.
My wife and I rushed to the hospital only to talk to the paramedics as they were rushing him in. They said it didn't look good. Said, you know, he's bleeding internally. Said probably gonna lose his leg, you know, lots to it. So my first thought was I had to get a hold of his mother, because they'd already had a loss of Mike's blood brother that year before. And I knew she was just, you know, she needed to know right away.
The femur was a mess. It was a comminuted fracture, and the other major problem was that he had had a previous knee prosthesis. And so for that reason, our orthopedist did not really want to get involved in actually definitively fixing the fracture. They wanted to just get it stabilized enough so we could get him down the road. And of course, the vascular injuries needed to be repaired by Dr. Pearson and myself. In this case, of course, we're dealing with ischemia time of the limb, as well as the potential for ongoing blood loss. So the more time elapses, obviously, the more chances are there's going to be limb or tissue loss, even nerve damage, that sort of thing. And the more the more you have a chance to bleed. Even if you're keeping up with blood loss, there's always a greater chance of developing multi-system failure and that sort of thing.
So when he arrived at LeGrand Hospital, he was very fortunate that there was a team of surgeons, both a vascular general surgeon and an orthopedic surgeon, who combined their experience to stabilize the bone with an external fixator, which is just a temporary stabilization with pins that are out of the way of the vascular repair, but prevent the limb from being floppy.
I'm extremely blessed to be here. Had those people decided to not come to work that day, or just decided that I was not worth saving, I wouldn't be here. I'm confident in that these people saved my life. I've made a very substantial change in my life and my outlook on everything. I look at clouds differently. I look at people differently.
By the time Mr. Blount arrived to us, he certainly was still very critical. Our role was to evaluate the circulation in that leg and confirm that the repair was very successful and that there was no other need for intervention.
If that had not occurred, I wouldn't have had any, fracture work to do. He would have probably had to have an amputation above the knee. So, a very, very excellent repair and initial stabilization, so that Mr. Blount could then come to Portland for his repair.
I'm changed. I'm not perfect. I'm so not perfect. But I'm also not who I used to be. If I hadn't been given this umpteenth chance, I fear who I would have become. I'm eternally grateful for the teams that have worked on me and saved my life. But I'm not being ungrateful, but there's nowhere nearly enough trained professionals that are available to help. Everybody that's able to help, please help. This is urgent matter. This could be your son or your daughter or your loved one.